Hey everyone, Kyle once again, and welcome back to the next movie review and back to reviewing the Expendables movies. After I really enjoyed the first Expendables, it was fun, seeing those action stars together, Yeah, a few nitpicks here and there though, but overall, I enjoyed the first Expendables. I had a great time seeing it in the theater. I thought Stallone did a really good job directing it. Action sequences overall was really good, except for there's a few nitpicks here and there, though. But overall, I enjoyed the first Expendables, But now, sadly, we get into the sequels. Now, people like these sequels, fine by me. It's your opinion, though. But when I first Expendables 2, okay, I look forward to it. What could they do? And some more of the additional castings. Okay, you got Jean-Claude Van Damme as your bad guy. Cool, because I love Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's one of my favorite action stars, along with with Arnold and Stallone, and those are basically the three main action stars I grew up with, and okay, cool, Jean-Claude Van Damme as the bad guy, Now, Expendables 2 came out. Now, it was a hit. It made over 300 million worldwide. It's the highest one of this franchise. People say it did receive better. It critically did receive better than the first film. People say it's an improvement over the first film. I'm sorry, I disagree with this. People can nag on me on this though, but I disagree wholeheartedly because to me the best one is the first film. The second film, I'm sorry, it was such a disappointment. Oh, God. So, the reason why I don't like this one because it was such disappointing because it tries to be so much. Yeah, you see, the first one was trying to take the play on the action movies from the 80s and 90s, right? That was cool, right? Yeah, some of the humor, a couple of bits of humor didn't work, but okay. But there's a couple times I thought there was some witty lines I liked, But apparently, I don't know if it was Stallone or whoever got the idea to make it much more funnier. Which, to me, I think was a mistake because, to me, with all the obvious, because they decided to make it so much more obvious, the humor, to say, oh, the wink at the camera every time, hey, you get it, you get it, you get it? Like, a wink at the camera, like, every 10 seconds of a joke, oh, it gives it so much obvious on-the-nose jokes, To me, I think that was a mistake, And that's one thing that was just kept turning me off because of others. They put so much humor in this. This is starting to make this film like a parody of the first movie. But that's one of the biggest mistakes. Number two, some actions were decent though, but the thing is though they still use. There was still bad CGI blood, which I think, I'm sorry, I think they're just too cheap to afford actual blood squibs, which you can't afford. But they just wanted to be too lazy to rig it on people, So they decided to go the cheaper way, just put CGI blood, which is bad CGI blood. And certain CGI moments did not work, it looked awful. And one thing was more insulting because another bad guy amongst the mix of Van Damme, his right-hand guy, is played by Scott Adkins. Cool to see Scott Adkins. I enjoy Scott Adkins. The biggest disappointment was the two fights. You had Scott Adkins versus Jason Statham, and then Stallone and Van Damme. I'll get into it though, but getting from the beginning, okay. There's this at the beginning. Stallone's team goes in for this at this place. I forget what place it was though, but some of the actions was decent. Like you have Jet Li, who is fighting people with frying pans. That was neat to see. And then he got they rescue this one person, which turns out to be Arnold, and he's like, well, this is embarrassing. And Stallone's like, yeah, it is. And then because he said he was trying to save this Chinese billionaire that's also being held hostage, the one who was after, and he's like he references about his team, you know. I'm like, who is? I would like to know who is Arnold's team. I would like to know, because in the beginning of the first movie, when Bruce Willis was meeting both of them, right, because they have their own separate teams, I would like to know who was Arnold's team was. I would love to know, you know. Would have been Mark Dacascos, because I like Mark Dacascos. There you have Jeff Speakman from the Perfect Weapon, which I really enjoy, you know, and Deadly Outbreak. You could have put maybe Jeff Speakman in there. Not Steven Seagal, because he doesn't get along with freaking anybody, so he's out of the picture. Pun in the third film, which I'll get to, though, but didn't mean it like that, though. But Steven Seagal in there, because he is, like I said, he doesn't get along with anybody, and like I said, his ego is so far up his ass, you know. Jackie Chan, even though say he probably be well up there with the other guys, but I think he was offered to play in this film, but he declined. Same with Donnie Yen. I think he was also offered, but declined as well. I would like to more who would be on Arnold's team, you know. Well. And then Arnold needs a gun, and he gets Terry Crews's gun. And he goes and here we go with the obvious jokes, like, you know, I don't know if people would think it's funny though, but to me it's not. And Terry Crews goes, if I don't get this gun back, your ass is terminated. Like I said, like the obvious winks of the camera, right? Get it? So I'm not getting to it. Everyone knows the jokes. Your ass is terminated. So they escape, and Stallone and his team, they're on the ground. They try ziplining. They get crashed to the ground, and Stallone does like the whole gun finger ride, which he has done before. But a new member of the team shoots them. He's a sniper, and it's Liam Hemsworth as his kid, Billy the Kid. He was a sniper from Afghanistan, which, I'm sorry, I don't give a shit about his character. I don't. And to me, Chris Hemsworth is a much better brother than Liam Hemsworth. I don't care about Liam Hemsworth I don't care about him in the Hunger Games. And especially he was shitty in Independence Day, Resurgence, Regurgitated, him pissing in front of the aliens. Oh, okay, I'll cause a distraction. I'm gonna piss in front of the aliens. Chris is a much better brother than Liam is. So I don't give a shit about his character. Such as it tells a stupid story when he was in Afghanistan and they killed this stray dog. I don't give a shit. So, but they get out of there, and Jet Li, he's in only at the beginning, and he's out of the movie because I guess apparently he was doing another movie with this, so that's why he was only in the beginning. He takes that Chinese guy with them before he and Dolph get a picture, and then he drops down to Hong Kong, and that's the end of Jet Li for this movie. That's one problem I have. Yeah, see, I think my dog's hearing me. He's getting pissed about Expendables 2 now, you know. Thank you. But yeah, that's one thing. The underuse of Jet Li. Yeah, scheduling conflicts, whatever, but still, okay. He has that one decent fight with the frying pans, but that was the end of Jet Li, and that's underusage of Jet Li. That's number one. And then they have this well, they're at a bar back home. And this is one thing that I thought was another huge mistake. Dolph Lundgren is a joke in this movie. As he was... Well, he does absolutely nothing in the third movie. Absolutely nothing. But here he's treated as a joke. Okay, they're talking at a bar in which they use this because in real life, in the movie, he's speaking about chemical engineering, right? And which, yes, in real life, Dolph Lundgren does have a degree in chemical engineering. That's why they reference it, right? because he has a real life degree in chemical engineering. So he's writing down on a napkin, and he blows his freaking nose into it. He writes down an equation on a napkin, and then he blows in his nose into it. And then this stupid dialogue, I think he says later on talk about like eating whale ass. I'm like, and then later on when they're trapped in the mine, when he tries to make a bomb with his chemical engineering, it doesn't go off. Dolph Lundgren is treated as a joke in this. Okay, I mean, what happened to... I don't know whose idea to do this with Dolph Lundgren, because in the first film, he shows how unhinged he was. You know, in the beginning of the first one, he blows a guy in half, his upper half away. Warning shot. Little low. And then he kind of does turn coat, and fight the good fight he had with Jet Li. What are you, size 3? Bring it, Happy Feet. I really enjoyed him. I really enjoyed him, his character in that, but it seems like, okay, he's unhinged though, but just not in his right mind. And then here he's treated as a joke. Yeah, they reference Dolph's real life chemical engineering degree, and they make fun of that. Blows his nose into it, makes a bomb. It doesn't work. Great job. Making fun of Dolph Lundgren. And then he's talking about freaking eating whale ass. I'm like... So, and then we have... Oh, yeah, and Jason Statham, his girl from the first movie, comes back in this one scene appearance. And then Liam Hemsworth is talking about leaving the team because he has a girlfriend, a French girl he likes back in Paris. Like I said, I don't care about this new character. I don't. And then Stallone meets with Bruce Willis again. They could have been cool, because it may seem like what kind of an evil. It seemed like Bruce Willis was like an evil man he was in the first movie, because what he could have done with Stallone and his team. Right? He's like, when he was talking to him, he was like, if you fuck with me, I will chop you up and I will chop you up to little dog treats. You got a problem with that? It seemed like he could really fuck over Stallone, though. He can make a good villain, too, along with Van Damme, Have him, this agent or whatever he works for, and he's a turncoat, and he's another villain, too. I mean, thing is, though, there's this time when they're called the Expendables for a reason. Have some of them die, right? But the only one they do is with Liam Hemsworth. Have him kill off Randy Couture. I mean... Like in the first film, he's the weakest of the bunch of the group. I respect him as a UFC fighter, but as an actor, he's not an actor. He doesn't do it as an action star or an actor. Have him kill him off, Because that way shows, okay, more of his team is dead, 2 of his team is dead, and that's what motivates Stallone even further. Kill not just William Hemsworth, but another member of the main members of their team, like Randy Couture. Because to me, he's the least favorite of the group, So have kill him off, To me, he's a good fighter, but not as an actor. So that was one of the things I had with the first film is him, and plus with that crap, sort of anticlimactic fight with him and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Steve Austin, bad CGI fire around him. But anyway, they go with Bruce Willis's plan. Bruce Willis. They bring this woman along. Yunnan, I think her name is. Yunnan. Why this character had to be in the movie, I had no idea. But she was a crappy character. Another one like Liam Hemsworth was. Another shitty character I did not care about, but they needed to get this box from this plane that got shot down. They go off, what was it, in Bulgaria or somewhere, some other foreign country, and so they had to retrieve this box from this safe that was this plane that crashed landed, and then they meet basically like a little over 30 minutes of the movie. This when Van Damme shows up. Van Damme, of course, Another obvious thing. Okay, Van Damme's villain. There you have it. I said his name is Fallon. Get it? Yeah. Vallon. Couldn't make it much more obvious, right? Couldn't, you know, it would be cool if they would use a better name instead of Fallon. You know, like a reference for, like, a character from his other movies, like, from his good movies, like with Hard Target. Name him, like, Chance or something, you know? Or, if you make him, go name him, like, Devereaux or something, you know, because his character from Luke Devereaux, you know, of the Universal Soldier, or something, you know? I mean, just not such an obvious crap name like Fallon. Get it? And his right hand is Scott Adkins. They want the device. And okay, highlight of the film. One of the best parts of the film. If I'll give it to this film, Van Damme did a good job. I love Jean-Claude Van Damme. He did a good job as the bad guy. But despite him doing a good job, though, I liked his presence. You know, it shows he can be a threat. He was sorely underused. And you know, the thing is, I don't know if it's Stallone, because he helped write the film, or the other writer, or the director. And speaking of the director, it's sad because this director is Simon West. He directed films like The General's Daughter with John Travolta, or the first Lara Croft Tomb Raider movie with Angelina Jolie. I like the first Lara Croft film. Didn't mind General's Daughter. But the big kicker for me was he directed freaking Con Air. One of my favorite action films of the 90s that I grew up watching all the time on television, you know. I love Con Air, you know. With a great cast with Nicolas Cage, John Cusack, and John Malkovich. Vig Rhames, Steve Buscemi, Danny Trejo, Cole Meany. I love Con Air. You know, one of my favorite action films from the 90s, you know, and with a great soundtrack too, and great action. I love Con Air. This is Simon West who you got the guy who directed Con Air to direct this movie. And boy, was such a beyond disappointment. Van Damme and Scott Adkins are so underused. And I mentioned about their fights. Okay, let's get straight to it. With Scott Adkins' fights, it's Jason Statham. Too short, okay, and Scott Adkins sorely underused. It was too short and too anticlimactic for him. There's a brief fight with Jason Statham. He has brass knuckles and he has a knife, and he puts Scott Adkins through one of the helicopter blades, you know, the tail end part. It's too short, and a waste of Scott Adkins. You know, look, you have Jason Statham, who are two good martial artists. You know, have them extended, show more of their usage of their martial arts skills. You know, no, because it would take too long. Okay, and then the big fight. You got Stallone. Are you listening? You got Stallone and Van Damme fighting each other. Two of the best action stars. And the fight was such beyond disappointment and beyond shitty. And also one-sided. Stallone got more freaking hits than Van Damme did. He got barely like 30 punches on one time. Van Damme, he does his signature helicopter kick one time. Oh, he does it a second time. No, they reuse that same freaking scene again from the first kick. Because I know, because which I would have had the DVD because it's in stores, like I said. But it was on the commentary. They reused that same shot again. I'm like, couldn't do it a second? Could have him do it a second time without reusing the same first shot of the first kick? That's all he does. And Van Damme basically took the words out of my mouth. Over so soon? I want my money's worth. Yes, thank you, Van Damme. You took the words right out of my mouth. You know, it was so short. It was over so soon. I didn't get my money's worth. Van Damme and Stallone fighting together. And again, it was an anticlimactic, short, and one-sided fight. I don't know what's more disappointing for an action scene than that. When you get two iconic action stars, and you give them such an anticlimactic, shitty, short, one-sided fight. I don't know what pisses me off, for an action film. I don't know what pisses me off for, you get for Expendables 2, you have an exciting. You have Stallone and you have Van Damme as your bad guy. And when you see them, they're gonna fight. Oh, it's gonna be so great and epic, right? Two of the greatest action stars of all time. And then you're left with beyond disappointing. I sure as hell was. After that fight, I want to punch the freaking computer, not the computer screen, but the TV screen. I don't know what was so infuriating about that, Sorry about that. I had to take a drink because I needed it. I'm doing more of the do, because I knew I would be infuriated by this, so. Yeah, I know I was jumping ahead, but people have seen the film already. That was such one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen in an action film. You get two iconic action stars first time fighting together, and you get a shit fight like that. Stallone is essentially, it's one-sided. He gets so many punches on Van Damme, gets a chain, throws it around him, pulls him in, and stabs him with a knife. Although it was cool earlier that, going back to where we were, that Van Damme kills Liam Hemsworth. Scott Adkins sets the knife up, and Van Damme kicks the knife into Liam Hemsworth's chest. I like that. I like that move. That was cool what Van Damme did. It just shows he could be. He was a good bad guy, he was. It was cool what he did. Showed he could be a pretty good menacing villain. And I would like to see more what Van Damme could have done, being this evil man in his army, him screwing up more people, because his whole plot is that there is this good amount of plutonium, and he has all these innocent villagers, mainly the men, to mine in this mine to take out all this plutonium in there, so he can sell and make a great deal amount of money. Have him, people who are not obeying him, have him kill some more innocent people, Shows that how a menacing guy he is, But the thing is, he was so freaking underused in this. He shows up in that one scene, kills Liam Hemsworth, another scene where he's talking to Scott Adkins about the plutonium, then mainly towards the finale. He was so underused in this, which I also was so disappointing about. He could be a good bad guy. He was. He was one of the best parts of the film for me. And then, so after that, they bury Liam Hemsworth, about get him reading this letter he was going to give to his girlfriend. And then they go into town, and this whole thing, like I said, they're talking, at night, they're, was what Dolph Lundgren was saying, talk about eating whale ass, and the woman, Yunai, telling to stalking Stallone, oh, she likes Italian. Get it? I don't know why this character had to be in the movie in the first place. I didn't care about her at all. And so, there was another thing that there was another thing about Randy Couture about his. Oh yeah, Terry Crews was talking about. I was like, oh, I don't eat. Referencing once again about Randy Couture about his cauliflower ear, saying, oh, go eat some Earios or something like that. I'm like, I don't give a shit about Randy Couture and his freaking cauliflower ear. I don't. Yeah, they made that joke. They made a joke like that in the first movie. I didn't give a shit about that. I don't give a shit about Randy Couture. I don't give a shit about him and his stupid cauliflower ear. He's a good fighter. I respect him on that, but just like obvious jokes, and Randy Couture is not an action actor. He's not. And then in the morning, they get attacked, they get ambushed, and then Someone takes out all these bad guys and blows up a tank. And then you got freaking Chuck Norris comes in. Cool. It was cool, yes. It was cool to see Chuck... Another positive thing. It was cool to see Chuck Norris. You know, I love Chuck Norris. I love the Delta Force movies. The Missing in Action films. Invasion USA. I even like the... And when I was a kid, when I saw him in the movie Sidekick, you know, with him and the late Jonathan Brandis. Rest in peace to him, you know. I didn't mind Sidekick, you know. And yet, the funny thing is, that film that doesn't have a Blu-ray, you know? Sidekick. Yeah, Jonathan Brandis, Mako, Beau Bridges, Joe Piscopo, you know? Sort of like Karate Kid type movie with Chuck Norris, though. I think it's quite funny. It's funny that Sidekick does not have a Blu-ray, you know? I have no idea why. Yeah, but hey, it was cool to see Chuck Norris in this, but the thing is, okay. When he makes his entrance, you have you have Ennio Morricone's score of From the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the man with no name, playing. You know, wah, 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 wah. You know, I think that was I like that. I like that music from. Better because it was used for The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, right? That's a classic, iconic piece of score of music from the late Ennio Morricone. But it should not put that in this movie. If you want, because okay, Chuck Norris, you know, his code name is Booker, which that was the name of a character he starred in another movie. I forget what it was though. It was from the 70s, but his nickname is He's called the Lone Wolf, right? Yes. From his character, Lone Wolf McQuade, right? If you want to go that way, have him make his entrance using the Lone Wolf music. Lone Wolf McQuade music, you know? If you want to go like that. If he's named the Lone Wolf, have him put like the music from his series Lone Wolf McQuade. Or, you know, if you want to go that far. Not putting the good and the bad and the ugly music in there. Or put another good piece of music, you know, from the Delta Force movies or the Missing in Action films. I would like to hear that because I like those movies, and those are good scores too, you know. But no, they had to make it like I said. This is more times I feel like this movie is more of a parody of the first movie, you know, because they try to put so many humor into this. It's starting to feel like a parody, a spoof of the first movie. And yeah, so of course when Chuck Norris arrives, yes, they have to throw in a Chuck Norris fact, right? Yes, they had to throw in a Chuck Norris fact. When they said when he got bit by a cobra and 5 days later the cobra died. A lot of people like those. A lot of people like those jokes. I never did. Hey, I know it's supposed to show how cool and awesome Chuck Norris is, like he's a god, you know, with all these facts, right? I get it, but to me they were never that funny. It wasn't. Now my brother, he likes those. He does. To me, I never thought it was funny. I get the whole thing that Chuck Norris was supposed to be such an awesome man, you know, a god of all things. But they had to throw that in there. I'm like, oh god, really? And then he disappears and towards the finale. I mean, why couldn't Chuck Norris stay with the team? I mean, it's not like he's not busy, you know. I mean, he didn't do any films before or after this movie. I mean, yeah, back then he was doing commercials, like for the exercise commercials for the Bowflex. Do you remember those? But what was he doing before then, you know? Before or after? He didn't do anything, you know? I'm like, was he that busy, you know? But I wish you could just stick with the team. But he goes, oh, he's the lone wolf. He rides alone, right? He works alone. But regardless, so besides that, it was cool to see Chuck Norris. I mean, like I said, you could use a good, bad, ugly score. Use it one of like, if you want to name the Lone Wolf, okay, do it as a reference to Lone Wolf McQuade, you know, for using that music, you know. But Anyway, so after that, they go to this village, they kill some more bad guys, and you have some more a decent thing with Jason Statham, where he's in this church in this Buddhist monk outfit, and he's saying, "I may not pronounce you, man and knife." Kill some guys with a knife, and then they shoot this one bad guy. And Stallone goes and says, "Rest in pieces." You know, I wish if it was Dolph Lundgren who said it, because you know it would have been cool. It would have been a cool reference, you know, to "I come in peace." When he said, you know, it was like, "Go in pieces, asshole." That would have been a cool, subtle callback to that movie, you know? Like I said, in the first movie when Stallone, Willis, and Schwarzenegger were talking, right? And Schwarzenegger goes and says, "Give this job to my friend here. He loves playing in the jungle." See, that would have been that was a nice, subtle callback to Rambo, right? It wasn't too obvious, a wink at the camera. That would have been a nice callback if Dolph Lundgren would have said that, you know? Rest in pieces. That would have been the reference to "I come in peace," but no. And so then they to rescue those people from the mine. They fly the plane in, and it looked awful. It did. That whole sequence was awful. But then they get stuck down there, and then we get with Dolph Lundgren once again as a joke, because he tries to make a bomb, you know, with this chemical engineering, right? It doesn't work. So once again, Dolph Lundgren is a joke in this. And then the walls break, and it's Schwarzenegger, and he goes and says, "I'm back," which I'm tired of hearing that now, because see, those are classic lines, and now they've been so overused and overdone nowadays. It's now a joke. You know, "I'm back," or "Get to the chopper," right? Those are classic lines, and now they're a joke now. It's because you want to get, "Oh, look at it, you remember this?" And I'm like, yes, we know. Everyone knows about it, yes. But now that it's been so redundant nowadays, I've grown tired of hearing him now. "I'm back." Yeah. So they all team up against Van Damme. It was cool. They're all shooting together. Chuck Norris comes in. They get this big fight at the airport. Cool that Chuck Norris shoots some more bad guys. He shoots this one guy, ends up in an X-ray machine. That was nice to see. And but then you get more obvious jokes where, okay, Schwarzenegger goes and says, I'll be back," and then Bruce Willis goes and says, "You've been back already. I'll be back." And then and Arnold goes and says, "Yippee-ki-yay." And then Chuck Norris pulls the next to him, and he goes and says, "Who's next? Rambo?" It's like all these they plainly say it's starting to be like a parody, a spoof of the first movie, you know. Which I think that was a big mistake. I think they should not have gone so much on the freaking humor. Yes, you had some humor in the first movie, but it wasn't so many every 5 seconds. It was so plainly obvious. Do you get it? Do you get it? Although it was cool to see Chuck Norris next to Arnold, yeah, it was cool to see that too. And so, then you get the short fight with Scott Adkins and Jason Statham. Like I said, it was too short and too anticlimactic. You know, they get some punches in, and then Scott Adkins gets thrown to the tail end of the blades of the helicopter. Scott Adkins underused. And like I said, you get the beyond disappointing, shitty fight with Stallone and Van Damme. You know, and yeah, Van Damme says to Knives, he goes, "Hey, where are we? Men or sheep?" Because he mentioned that before, you know. And it was such disappointing, one-sided. Stallone gets more punches, like in one part, and then, like I said, Van Damme does his signature kick, his helicopter kick. And then they reuse that same exact scene of when he did the first kick a second time. I'm like, because in the commentary, like I said, they reuse that same scene of that kick shortly afterwards. A few seconds later, and it's like, you cheap bastards. Couldn't have him do it for a second time. And then Stallone Van Damme says, over so soon? I won my money's worth. I'm like, yes, you took the words right out of my mouth, Van Damme. You got that right. So short, anticlimactic, one-sided. Stallone gets way more hits than Van Damme does. He throws a chain around his neck, pulls him in, and then stabs him with a knife. I don't know what was more infuriating than that, because, like I said, you get two of one of the most iconic action stars, Sylvester Stallone, versus Jean-Claude Van Damme, and he gets a short, shitty, anticlimactic, one-sided fight. I mean, that's something that Steven Seagal would pull in his action films, right? Yes, his fights are one-sided too, you know, because he has to win. I was so infuriating about that fight, because you get two of the greatest action stars, and you get such a shitty fight like that. I don't know what's more insulting as an action fan, you know. Maybe I'm just crazy, you know. Maybe I'm just crazy, just thinking like that. So then after that, it was cool, you know, with Stallone, Bruce Willis, and Schwarzenegger with Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris leads with Arnold and Bruce. It was cool to see him in the same scene with them together. It was cool too. Then they go back. Stallone gives the money to Liam Hemsworth's girlfriend, and that's pretty much about it. I know that after this, Expendables 3 is worse. I didn't think it couldn't get worse until 9 years later, after the third movie, we get Expendables 4, which is so much freaking worse. I thought Expendables 3 would be worse, but no. Expendables 4 topped it easily. I don't like Expendables 2 because the fact it was such a disappointment. That's why I don't like it. Now 3 sucks. 4 sucks even more. 2, it was just a disappointment. Like I said, you know, underusage of Scott Adkins and way underuse of Van Damme. Now, Van Damme, like I said, he was good as a bad guy, but like I said, his name so obvious. Valon, could have got a different name. I mean, you know, it's funny that it comes to I recently reviewed. You know, it was, like I said, it was. I'm losing my words now. All the obvious jokes, they should not have gone so far with the humor, and just started feeling like it was a parody or a spoof, right? Just could just cut back on the jokes and make us like a subtle jokes, you know, to make nice callbacks, you know. But the fights, Jet Li had a decent fight with the frying pans, but then he disappears from the beginning of the movie. Dolph Lundgren, he's treated as a joke, okay. And number 3, he does absolutely nothing at all except drive a tank. That's it. Randy Couture, I don't give a... Why couldn't they just kill Randy Couture? Yeah, kill Liam Hemsworth off, but kill another member of their team, you know? That would, you know, wanting Stallone for more revenge, you know? They're called the Expendables for a reason. You know, they're good guys, but kill them off. That's why they're called the Expendables for a reason, you know? They don't all have to live, you know? There's even more reason, more infuriating about the third film, too. So, and the obvious jokes, like I said, I don't think it was not funny. Your ass is terminated, or Dolph talk about eating whale ass, or, oh, who's next? Rambo. Yippee-ki-yay, I'm back. You've been back, I'll be back. Or the Chuck Norris fact, the Cobra died. Some actions didn't. I mean, the whole flying in the plane down, it looked awful. Like I said, Dolph Lundgren's joke with the bomb not working. His Dolph's real life chemical engineering reference is a joke. Makes an equation on a napkin, blows his nose into it. I've already mentioned, I think why Van Damme. I don't know why. Was Stallone mad at Van Damme because he turned down to be in the first film, I think? Well, maybe because probably, like I said, Van Damme probably didn't get along with Mickey Rourke because Mickey Rourke was in the first movie. He didn't get along with Mickey Rourke when they were doing the film Double Team. Maybe that was why it was. So because is Stallone pissed at Van Damme because of that? So that's why he doesn't make it a one-sided fight? I don't know. I'm way off base on that though, but it was it was the fight between Van Damme and Stallone. It was beyond disappointing and beyond infuriating and beyond shitty. Cool to see Chuck Norris, why couldn't he stick with the rest of the team? Because he was so busy. He didn't do anything between the Expendables 2 or the before or after the movie. It's like he was not that busy, But it was cool to see Chuck Norris regardless, though, because I like Chuck Norris, though, but some decent actions, there were some other decent action scenes, though. But just Simon West, I don't know whose fault it is. There's always somebody to blame, though. But if it was Stallone or was the other writer who helped write the movie, Simon West, the guy directed Con Air, for crying out loud. I love Con Air. I like this. I like the first Tomb Raider film, but when it comes to this director, it's Con Air I always think about because I love the film. One of my favorite action films from the 90s. I don't know what the frick happened. And I know sometime years afterwards he was set to direct another remake of The Blob with Sam Jackson, or was it Halle Berry? I'm like, well, that fell through, so that never came up again. I'm like, thank God we don't need another remake of The Blob, because there's one remake of The Blob we need, and that was from the remake from '88 with Kevin Dillon and Shawnee Smith. Because I know Ron Zombie was a part going to trash to direct that. Was he going to make the Blob curse a whole bunch of times? That's another thing though. That's another story though. But that's what Simon West was supposedly attached to direct. But thankfully that didn't work out. Underused. Van Damme, good bad guy, but sadly he was so underused. Same with Scott Adkins. Some fights were decent, but sometimes there was oh yeah, with bad CGI blood. I've mentioned that before. Too cheap for blood squibs. You can afford it, alright? It just doesn't know that it takes out of it with CGI blood. It was used nowadays because it's so cheap and it's fake. I mean, if I enjoy the movie enough, I can let go, give leeway to it though, but come on, you can afford to do actual blood squibs. Horror films still use practical blood, But, like I said, kill characters I didn't care for. I didn't care about Liam Hemsworth's character. I didn't care about Yunnan. I didn't give a shit about her character. Kill Randy Couture as well. Like I said, they're called the Expendables. Have someone else die on their team, It was cool to see Van Damme do the kick with a knife. It was cool to see that. But this sequel was such a disappointing, a disappointment. And especially with that fight, Van Damme and Stallone, I don't know what was more infuriating as an action fan. I'm sure it probably pissed off a lot of fans who are action fans of Stallone and Van Damme too, One-sided, short, anticlimactic. But, sadly, the other two ones are much worse. 3 is bad, 2 as well, but 4 is even worse. So this is, the film, I don't like Expendables 2. Just because the fact it was such a disappointing movie. You know, from the fact that, you know, I don't know why people are critics saying this is an improvement or it's better than the first film. To me, it just felt like it was more of a parody or a spoof of the first one, with so much of the humor they're referencing. It became like that, which I think it was a mistake. That's why the first one was the best one of the series, you know. So, but yeah, but that's my review for Expendables 2. Disappointing, beyond disappointing, especially for, like I said before. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for Expendables 3. And then it's getting much worse for the fourth one, you know. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And we'll see you next time. Later.